So welcome everybody. I am Dolinda Cavallo on behalf of ALDA, the European Association for Local Democracy. And I'm very excited to welcome you today to ALDA Talks on gender equality and empowerment. This is a very important topic for us. And today we are going to discuss it with 5 panelists from different countries. Today we'll navigate with them the terms of gender equality and empowerment, bringing in some good practices from their countries also. So before start, I would like to very quickly involve you in a little game. We will use a Mentimeter, and I will address you a question that is, what comes to your mind when you hear the words gender equality and women empowerment? To access this platform, you should just, I'm going to share my screen. So you should just access the Mentimeter. So again, if you want to access this Mentimeter, you can see the code here above. So I see here feminism, equality, job, equal rights, fight, justice. I think this is also interesting for our panelists to see also what are the feelings and of the attendees of this webinar. So support, power, feminism still is the word that is bigger, so is the one that's most attendees wrote down. Work support, fairness, normal, and then together, revolution, balance, and rights, of course. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing it with me. So let's go quickly to see the agenda, and then we can actually go deeper into the discussion. So the first presentation will be made by Rosanna Scarica Barozzi, the head of the unit Gender and Economic Justice at ActionAid Italia, who will present the Bright and We Go projects. After we will have Stanimira Hajimitova from the Center of Sustainable Community Development from Bulgaria. Then we will have the possibility to hear from Giovanna Vingelli from the University of Calabria, and precisely from the Center of Human Studies My Villa from Italy. Following her, we will have Fiori Zafeiripopoulou from the Social Fashion Factory from Greece. And in the end, we will have Diana Georgieva from the Center of Sustainable Community. Okay, so I now leave the floor to Rosanna, and who will present us the Bright and the We Go project. Thank you all for being here, and I wish you a very interesting discussion.
Thank you, Dolinda, and thank you for the invitation. And I'm very glad that this event will focus on 2 of the main programs that ActionAid Italy is implementing right now, and which are very important to us. So I will briefly introduce them, and I'm very happy then to leave the floor to the colleagues from ALDA and CSCD to go more deeper into the contents. So ActionAid, for those who still don't know, is ActionAid Italy is part of a federation working in more than 45 countries. And I'm glad to see the word feminism in the Mentimeter results, because what is our contribution to this issue that Dolinda was presenting at the beginning? So gender equality, work-life balance, and women's empowerment. ActionAid adopts a feminist approach to power analysis and to analyze power relations, and of course to social justice in general, And we have a gender and economic justice program, and our program is based on two priorities, which is violence against women and access to rights and to decent work opportunities for women. And the BRIGHT program is focused on addressing the invisibility of women workers, especially those most at risk, and especially women from Bulgaria and Romania who comes to work in the agricultural sector in the south of Italy. And how we approach the problem of invisibility. We want to give women workers the power to identify the gaps in policies and in services, and most of all to have an active participation in building alternatives in terms of building gender responsive public services and to improve somehow the public response to the multiple violations of rights they are exposed to, which of course have to do with the decent work and the denial of the right to decent work opportunities, but also gender-based violence. And we want to do this, first of all, through promoting the empowerment of women workers in this process, and to build innovative administrative tools that can somehow improve and advance access rights and to gender responsive public services for those women workers. And the second program is We Go, and we have implementing this European program in several European countries and in the last 4 years. And this program will continue for at least the future 2 years, so until 2022 at least. And the focus is intimate partner violence, and especially we focus on tertiary prevention, and therefore so on promoting women's personal, social, and economic empowerment as a strategy to exit violent relationships, and therefore to build alternatives for those women who building their empowerment of the women themselves, but also by strengthening the key support services that should be entitled to support them in exiting violent relationships. And within this framework, we also build on a multi-stakeholder approach, and we want to strengthen local networks especially, and therefore involving different stakeholders which have a different role, complementary expertise, but also different and complementary responsibilities in responding to the multiple needs that women survivors of intimate partner violence are exposed to. So this is only to give and to present briefly ActionAid contribution to the issues of gender equality, empowerment, and social justice, which is built on 3 pillars in this project, which is women's empowerment and women's active role in shaping the alternatives that can respond to their needs, and a multi-stakeholder approach, so building and strengthening the networks and the collaboration among different stakeholders who are responsible for ensuring and for advancing women's access to rights. And the last pillar is addressing especially the needs of those women most at risk of rights violations and who are most exposed to forms of discrimination and violence. And therefore we adopt an intersectional approach to violation of rights, and in order to better respond to the different needs that women go through. So I'm very glad also to leave the floor to my colleagues to go more deeper into these projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rossana. That was a very interesting introduction. And for sure there will be a lot of questions afterwards about the project you just presented. But I now leave the floor to Stanimira Hajimitova from the Center of Sustainable Community Development of Bulgaria, who will discuss with us why gender equality matters. So, Stanimira, I
Yes.
leave you the floor.
Thank you very much. Do you see the screen? So
Yes.
good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your curiosity to participate in these talks. I had the task to present to you a basic concept of gender equality, but after I saw what you already mentioned, answer to the question, I have very easy task because I thought that more or less you are already prepared. So do excuse me if you already have knowledge on my presentation moment. So why we talk about gender, why we have troubles with its translation in our languages, which brought, let me tell you, a lot of troubles to country like mine in Bulgaria. We have to make this difference. When we talk about sex, we talk about men and women, physical attributes, universal attributes that are physical, and question, of course, till soon they were unchangeable. Now it's a good question. We can change them. But when we talk and use in all languages other than English, the gender word, we look at the social roles of the two genders, of the two sexes, men and women, how they are situated socially in the society in order to their access to different its resources. Do we talk about, do we like the roles of gender that are exposed by the society, about their relations? If we do not like them nowadays, can we change them? Do we want to change them, and how to do that? So it means that when we use this word gender, we mean cultural attributes to the men and women that varies within the culture, among the countries, within the different centuries, and which is really important that if we do not like them, we can change them altogether. So the main roles, even till 21st centuries, can be classified in three dimensions: reproductive role, productive role, community-based role. For the moment, I'm talking about women and men only. Later, we shall understand that inside these two big universally divided groups, there are subgroups that are different, that have differences between themselves, and to participate in the not to be discriminated, we have to pay attention to them as well, and to their specific problems, issues. But for the moment, women and men. So let's see first one, reproductive role. Women still are having this role to bear child and to organize the household. It is already changing, the process is changing, but still not enough, and still not everywhere. In the small villages, small towns, still women are having predominantly their role on their shoulders. As you see, not clearly defined role for the men. Nevertheless, the only thing from the physical point of view which divides the two sexes is that women can deliver babies and can give them, how is, I can't remember the word, they can give them food for the first first months. Sorry, forgot this word in English. These are only two moments that men cannot play this game. Why? is coming now is coming the question, why in this case afterwards the society is not giving opportunity to men to participate in child rearing and in the household activities, not so active still. And here the reproductive role, we can say that the society does not pay enough, if any, to women to do this job. Is it a job? Is the next question, if nobody pays for that. But this is only for thinking. Productive role. Yes, women are participating in the labor market for many years, especially in the ex-socialist countries. We were not having any problems to do that. But what is the situation with our jobs? Are they paid? Do they have remuneration? Do they have prestige in the society? And what is going with the men at the same time? Unfortunately, we still have so-called pink professions that are occupied mainly by women, and these occupations do not have enough image and do not have enough remuneration. So even if this is a income for a woman, the only one income if she's income earners in the family, it is not the same as the men. I read one survey from American University in California, which says that when a number of women get over 60% in one profession, immediately the payment, the earnings there, and the image of this profession is getting down. Only for considering later, why is it so? So in this productive role, we can talk about gender pay gap, we can talk about 30% less pensions that women receive when they become pensioners. So society here has to do a lot. And community level role, what concerns management of the community, it is a kind of extension of women's reproductive role here, again not paid, mainly voluntary. Community politics, what to say about political parties where women party members are used for organization of elections, for example, in the days when the elections are going to stay and help voters, such kind of things, but not in real political roles where the decisions for the party are taken. Again, this community politics is role is taken by men mainly, and some of them are often paid. So if you consider this multiple role of the burdens of women, reproductive at home, productive at work, and in the community management and political roles, it's obvious that it's too much on the shoulders of women. So gender roles are social constructed. If we consider as a society that it is not appropriate for men to look for the children, why? We have good excuse. Why? Because mother is better in this in this job. When I was a child and student, only mothers were visiting the in the school when we were having gatherings, when the teacher would gather mothers and fathers, not fathers. And what is important is that socially constructed these roles influence the division of labor. I was touching already this matter, a kind different work that men and women do as a consequence of their socializing patterns, identifying tasks traditionally seen as women's work and men's work. Task roles and responsibilities are usually classified as productive or reproductive, depending largely on whether they contribute to and are remunerative related to maintenance of household and office. And for me, after 25 years of work on the topic, because I'm engineer, diploma engineer and economist, and that was not in my mind for a long period of time. What is gender equality? Why to talk about that? I was born in socialist period. I was having all the opportunities to study and to work. So it took a time for me to understand the point of this course, and it changed my life. And what is very good for me is that this theory or approach considers men and women as different people, and consider that it is very good for the development. Why? Because we have different approach to the decisions, we have different priorities. During the centuries, we obtained different skills, different knowledge, and the society deserves to use all those talents of the two sexes, or in English could be mixed gender, as I explained already, which in Bulgarian make troubles with the translation. The main point is men and women, they are different, they are enough value for the development. That's why their voice should be heard. They have to participate in decision making, not only on questions that personally are attached to them, but to all questions that are taken, their attitudes, their needs will be heard, and the decision in this case will be more democratic. It is a question of democracy. This is division of society, how to say, universal division of society. Women are not, as a whole group, they are not vulnerable group. Of course, inside this group, just like in the group of men, we have vulnerable subgroups, which the different politics should reflect their needs and their participation in the formulation of decisions. For me, this is the main part of the concept of gender equality. That's why we are talking, looking everywhere, in every one policy or law, legislation, we are trying to see the gender dimension of this policy or law, to see how it influences men and women, how it influences subgroups, big groups. And in this sense, it is very important for the countries, for the states to have national structures which to deal with this policy. I know that the next colleague will talk more deep on gender mainstreaming and the specific approaches, specific ways to balance the situation for them. So for the moment it's enough, because I see that it took more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, thank you so much for sharing your experience, and also to picture us the difference of the roles, and also what is important to do. Following your comments, now we will talk with Giovanna Vingelli from the University of Calabria, which is the EU vision for gender equality. And so I leave you the floor to Giovanna Vingelli, who will present the Strategic Engagement for Gender Equality 2016-2019. What do we stand? Giovanna, I leave you the floor.
Thank you, Dolinda. Thank you, everybody, for the invitation. Thank you, Mira, for introducing some of the basic concepts of gender equality. I'm very happy to share with you some insights on the current state of gender equality at the European level. I hope you see my presentation. I'm going to share with you a very brief overview of the history of gender equality policy at European level. Then I will elaborate on how it can be interpreted as an evolution in 4 phases. Next, I will discuss the strategic engagement framework, focusing on strengths, weaknesses, and future challenges. And finally, I will take a quick glance at the new Gender Equality Strategy 2025. As you probably know very well, from the founding Treaty of Rome to the current Treaty of Lisbon, 2009, equality between women and men is a common value of the European Union. There has been a steady evolution in the treaties, both on the legal basis and the implementation of strategies and tools. We are going to talk about gender mainstreaming and specific actions. The historical evolution of EU gender equality policy can be described as a 4-phase evolution, starting with equal treatment in the 70s, over positive action in the 80s to gender mainstreaming in the 90s, and finally focusing on multiple discrimination and intersectionality. The equal treatment approach implies a legal redress to treat men and women at the same. This approach is embodied by Article 119 on equal pay, Treaty of Rome, and the directives on equal treatment in the workplace that followed. Over the years, the EU has supplemented its equal treatment legislation with positive action initiatives, as it has become clear that equal treatment does not automatically lead to equal outcomes. The 3rd phase, the gender mainstreaming approach, involved both analysis on how current systems and institutions are gender biased and find ways to evaluate the gender impact and redesign these systems and structures so that they can bring substantial equality for men and women. In this sense, gender mainstreaming has a more transformative potential than previous equality policies. Finally, as the 4th phase, the Treaty of Amsterdam states that the Council may take appropriate action to combat discrimination based on sex, racial or ethnic origin, age, religion or belief, disability and sexual orientation. And this is the base for diversity mainstreaming and intersectionality. It's important to remember that strategies to realize gender equality at European level are not seen as competing, but as complementary methods that strengthen each other and should go always hand in hand. One of the main problems is that the gender equality strategies and gender mainstreaming especially are supported and realized mainly through soft law, such as not binding communication, guidelines for the member states, and exchange of good practices. This implies that results are not always enforceable, and they depend largely on the goodwill and interpretation of the member states and the actors involved. So despite the transformative potential of gender mainstreaming especially, EU gender policies tend to be interpreted in a rather non-committal matter. Here you can see the main definition of gender mainstreaming, stating that gender equality is considered main objective of the European Union, and this objective can be obtained through tools and strategy that, as I said before, they must go hand in hand. So about the strategic engagement for gender equality 16-19. This was the European Commission policy framework for promoting gender equality up to 2019. It built on the priorities and experiences of the Strategy for Equality Between Women and Men 2010-2015, and it was established as a comprehensive framework outlining the Commission commitments to promote gender equality in all its policies, as well into European Union funding programs. The Commission defined some priority areas and objectives, as the slides show: labor market participation, gender pay gap, decision-making, gender-based violence, and promoting gender equality and women's rights across the world. I will only focus on a number of issues that have not been stressed enough, in my opinion, in the implementation of the strategy. For example, as for the labor market, an explicit reference to the elimination of gender stereotypes is missing in the specific objectives. And we know how important are the gender stereotypes, as Mira suggested just before. In light of the precariousness of employment, a reference to quality of employment is also lacking, as well as the elimination of sexual harassment in the workplace. In addition, the specific needs of some groups of women, especially migrant women, are addressed in the strategy, but not those of other groups, such as women with disabilities, for example. Objectives and actions for groups with multiple forms of discrimination, such as age, low education, are also few, meaning that intersectionality is not sufficiently developed. As for the effectiveness of the strategic engagement, it has been noted that the definition of objectives and actions has been sometimes unclear, and only a few quantitative targets have been set. Second, many actions of the strategy require a longer time span to address the intended outcomes, extending so beyond the time span of the strategy itself. Third, evaluation of several objectives is related to statistical indicators that are published with a time lag of 1 or 2 years. And we all know that missing data often means missing policies. Probably the most important outputs of the strategy are the directive on work-life balance and the action plan against the gender pay gap. At the same time, significant progress has been recorded in the thematic area of decision-making positions and gender-based violence. We can say that the main added value of the strategy has been its role as a framework for gender policy at the European level, and its agenda-setting role, as the strategy brings together a wide range of gender equality objectives and action across several fields. In this sense, the role of framing policies has been one of the main strengths of the strategy itself. We can also add that the visibility of the strategy has been somehow limited, including its knowledge among policymakers. So we can say that there is a need of an effective communication on gender equality issues, not only targeted to politicians or policymakers, that's to ensure that the issue of gender equality remains high on the agenda. It is also important, very important, to use the right language when talking about gender and gender equality, and to be aware of the different meanings of some common terms, as Mira again suggested. That's to say, we need more gender training on the topic, we need more promotion on the topic, as we are doing today, for example. Finally, this strategy was indeed developed and implemented in a changing context for gender policies. We all know that backlash against gender equality has become one of the most serious challenges to be addressed for progress to be made on gender equality. A recurring issue of the next gender equality framework, we will see it in just in a moment, is the need to maintain awareness of gender equality as a political and policy issue and ensure that it remains a priority of action. Otherwise, there is a serious risk of gender equality fatigue, with many people assuming that the most important battles have already been won and that gender equality is now a reality, so there is no need to do much more. There are worrying signs in Europe today that this is already happening, with evidence that gender equality policies is being downgraded by the governments of many EU member states through, for example, cuts in public spending on gender-relevant action, on gender-specific action, as a part of a general austerity drives. More generally, a growing imbalance in favor of economic concerns over social concerns. We have here some data on the situation now at European level. So these data are quite worrying in a way. And they mean that it would be a mistake to assume that the battle for gender equality has been won. Progress has been important in very few areas, such as levels of education, but slow in other. For example, in the education field, there is still an imbalance in the STEM, for example. The gender employment gap has not been reduced, and the gender pay gap has only slightly decreased. More in general, the existing structural imbalance of the labor market have not been addressed, despite the past frameworks, gender equality frameworks. As you can see, data on gender-based violence are still very high. However, significant outputs of this area include the signature by all member states of the Istanbul Convention, although not all the member states have ratified it. And we know that there is a strong backlash in some countries against the Istanbul Convention and against the gender equality in general. Other area of concern are about the specific action and programs like the quotas, for example. Thanks to the successful implementation of the quotas initiative, equality in decision-making has swiftly gained prominence among the European Union equality policies, but despite evidence suggests that quotas for women have resulted in more qualified company boards, there are many warnings that this is not a magic bullet solution. In conclusion, with the renewal of the European Union institution following the European election in 2019, the issue of gender equality made it back on the political agenda. In her political guidelines for the European Union, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen indicated that equality for all and equality in all its senses was one of the major priorities of her Commission. So on the 5th of March 2020, the European Commission published a Union of Equality, Gender Equality Strategy 2025. The strategy aims at achieving a gender-equal Europe where gender-based violence, sex discrimination, and structural inequality between women and men are a thing of the past. It's structured around seven themes and objectives, as shown in the slide. Again, a dual approach will be taken in implementing the strategy that combines gender mainstreaming with specific targeted action to achieve gender equality. It's also the first time that the European Union strategy aims to explicitly integrate an intersectional perspective in its implementation. In conclusion, given estimates that it will take around 50 years to reach the goal of gender equality at the current rate of change, it's obvious that more needs to be done to build on the achievements of the past and accelerate progress in the future. To this end, both the European Union as a whole and its member states individually will need a clear new strategy, targets and top-level commitments to achieve this. Let's see what happens with the last gender equality strategy. Let's see what the implementation will be, and I hope you to meet again in the very next future to discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanna. Thank you so much for these insights. I agree. There is still a lot to be done. So I think our work here and our commitment is also important to raise awareness on this. And now to continue our discussion, we will move to a more practical experience of another panelist, who is Fiori Zafeiropoulou from the Social Fashion Factory from SOFFA, SOFFA from Greece, who will share her experience in the field of textile industry. So Fiori, now I leave the floor to you.
Thank you very much. I heard all the amazing presentations from the other speakers, that they are much more knowledgeable in the scientific approach to gender equality. I'm a practitioner, so what I will talk about will be of the personal of my work to fight for women empowerment, and what are the ways that that I try to accomplish that. And then in the end, I will share you my own opinion about feminism today, and about what I think should be the next steps into empowering women and gender equality. My brother says that I've been born a feminist. Yes, if you could please play the video, the story of Social Fashion Factory.
Oh, look at her now, down on her knees, tries to stand up but crumbles. Hair to breathe, dreams on the field still hum. Pretty bleed, pieces within, over to distant places. Beg her to leave, but she lies still, lost in a trance she dreamed of. Flying to the sky, leaving the past behind. Flying high to the sky, starting a journey to the light. Flying high to the sky, leaving the past behind. Flying high to the sky, starting the journey to the light. Look at her now, tears in her eyes, trapped in the tassel of sorrow, striving to breathe, fighting to see what lies beyond this cruel world. Letting bleed, pieces within, over to distant places. Beg her to leave, but she lies still, lost in a trance she dreamed of. Flying high to the sky, leaving the rest behind. Flying high to the sky, starting a journey to the light.
Okay, thank you very much. SOFFA comes from the word Social Fashion Factory. So social fashion factory cannot bring a systemic change. It is a case-specific change that it can bring. So it can affect the lives of specific women. And the women that SOFFA tries to influence, who's the life of women that SOFFA tries to influence, is victims of human trafficking in Greece, and women in risk of exploitation and trafficking. So how we do that? We collaborate with 29 NGOs that are active in the areas of refugee integration, and that are safe houses that save women from the streets, from sexual trafficking mainly. What I realized is at the point is that there is that only 1% of women victims of human trafficking are saved, and of them 80% return to their traffickers because of financial vulnerability, because they don't know how to survive. So if we wanted to affect their lives, what we would need to do would be to train them on a profession that they could actually keep doing. As you find many times that these women they move around, they change countries. There is a very high turnover, and so when they will move to a new country, it's important, obviously because of fear and issues like that. When they move to a new country, it's important for them to know a profession that they can exercise in order to have to be able to live their lives. So at the Ethical Factory, at the Social Fashion Factory, what we decided to do, we decided that our workers should be people that come from these groups, people in risk of exclusion, in risk of trafficking, and survivor victims. When we tried to identify the tailors that would work in our factories, we realized that in order to be able to integrate these women, we would have to teach them, because they don't, you will see that women that come from, especially victims of human trafficking, and women that come from Afghanistan, from Iran, they don't know how to work in a factory as professionals, because they are kept in home. So what we realized is that in order to give them work, we had first to train them. And this is something that Social Factory SOFFA does. It provides training into tailoring, and the model, the business model that SOFFA operates is that the training is offered through the income that we generate from real orders. We get orders from brands, from sustainable brands all over the world, and we use this money to train and integrate into employment these populations. We're now launching a new program, Where Your Origin, where we, because in the course of these last 4 years, we realized that there are some women that are talented to become designers, or some that were trying to become designers in their home countries before having to be displaced. And so we started last year in January a fashion design program to 3 beneficiaries, 2 women and a man, that was halted because of COVID, lockdown. And we're now launching it. We learned from this experience, and now we're launching it with our team of volunteers in a much more elaborated version, where these 15 women, it will be addressed to 15 women survivor victims, and at the same time to 15 women, unemployed women fashion designers from all over Europe. And we are matching 1 fashion designer with 1 woman from our beneficiaries population. And we are giving the opportunity to these 30 women to design their own capsule collection, 100% sustainable, because in SOFFA we also target the regeneration of the environment. through circular fashion techniques, through zero waste, through the use of recycled textiles, vegan, plant-based. And so these 30 women will attend a 4-month program, training and mentoring program, and then their capsule collections, each one of them will design their own capsule collection, which will be manufactured by the women in the tailoring program, in the employment program in SOFFA. So this is a social enterprise for the work integration of vulnerable groups, and we have helped some women this past 4 years. But then when it comes to systemic change, because we are talking about very big numbers, we are talking about 25 million people living as modern slaves today. We are talking about 40 million people in human trafficking, both modern slaves and sexual trafficking. We are talking about 15 million women as child brides in marriage, in forced marriage. We're talking about organ trafficking. And then among these 40 million people, modern slaves, 1 out of 4 are children. So we're talking about girls. When it comes to the fashion industry, you will realize that fashion is the second biggest in human trafficking after electronics. And you will see that there are 75 million people working directly in the fashion industry. Of them, 80% are women. And many of them, they say even 1 out of 3, are exposed to physical violence, to verbal abuse. They're getting paid very little, much below the living wage of their countries. They work in unsafe conditions. You may all know about the accident in Rana Plaza in Bangladesh on the 24th of April in 2013. You may have seen images from this accident, that thousands of people were dead, and the labels, the brands found out about, and the brands discovered that they were being produced in Rana Plaza only because they found the labels, the labels of the brands were found in the ruins. So when it comes to the fashion industry, and that is one of the reasons why when I started SOFFA, when I returned from London, where I was doing my PhD in social entrepreneurship, and I wanted to set up a fashion factory, I learned about Rana Plaza accident, and I realized that this factory had to be ethical, and it had to provide employment to the victims that the fashion industry creates. So when it comes to systemic change, I would like us at this point, if we can see Who Made My Clothes, that's the awarded film of Fashion Revolution. Now it's working. Thank you very much. So Fashion Revolution was created from the ruins of Rana Plaza in Bangladesh with one message, with one question: who made my clothes? That was the first hashtag. The movement is a global movement. We started in Greece at the same time with the UK. It was founded by Ursula de Castro and Carrie Somers, and it's active in 110 countries today. It has the hashtag Who Made My Clothes every April has more than 250 million reach and more than 700 million impressions. So in Greece, we have a very active movement in many cities, and we have at the moment about 45 active volunteers that work on a daily basis. And the movement does three things. It does advocacy. So it advocates with the industry, with policymakers. It provides education, and so it creates knowledge. And third, it creates networks and partnerships. Because what Fashion Revolution thinks, in order to make a change, a systemic change on this issue of modern slavery and human rights violations in the fashion industry, we have to bring together in a conversation every actor of every stage of the supply chain, from the farmer to the final consumer. And this is what we do through various projects and activities. So Fashion Revolution demands a radical revolutionary change in the way we produce our clothes, in the way we source our clothes, and in the ways we consume our clothes. And I believe greatly in the individual power, in the power of the individual. So I believe if each one of us makes the connection among their everyday life choices and professional choices and human trafficking and violations on women that happen behind it, if this consciousness would happen, this connection would happen, then people would no longer would change their behavior, and that's enough. If one person can change their behavior and influence 2-3 people around them in their immediate family, nuclear family, then this to me brings a universal change. And truth is that lately, especially the last 3 years, because I'm an active participant in global conferences in OECD and OSCE, and there is a tremendous change. And you can see that, and from the gender equality discussions that are happening, so many in the last in the last couple of years, especially. So there is a very big change, and this brings me to my personal approach on the issue of gender equality. To me, feminism was great. And we congratulate it because it brought us here today. But right now, my personal opinion is, and as a writer, is what I write about, is that feminists right now can no longer satisfy the needs of women and the needs of the global community. I believe that there is a tremendous lack of women power in the universe, on Earth today, and that is why we see all this big issue with human trafficking and climate change and the destruction to the environment. I don't believe that what women need to do is to continue to imitate and to compete with men into conquering job positions that are designed for men into many ways, are designed based on their stamina, on their strengths and competencies. I believe that women should connect themselves with their own strengths, with their female powers. I think that what women should do is to connect with, I mean, if they look into the types of female goddesses and the types of women and what women power means, then what we need is for women to create new formulations, new like I did and many women like me have done in policy making, inside corporations and big organizations, and also as entrepreneurs. So what is needed right now is new formations that that women can play. And when I mean women power, I don't only mean about women. There may be men that are connected with women power. And that to me would bring back an equilibrium of female and male power in the work environment and on earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That I think it was a very insightful presentation and a very practical experience on the big work that you have done in SOFFA. I am pretty sure that there will be a lot of questions afterwards. So since we are a little bit late, I directly leave the floor to the last panelist who will give us another good practice of economic empowerment. So I now leave the floor to Diana Georgieva from the Center of Sustainable Community. And then we will have maybe the time to have some questions in the end. So Diana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dulinda. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much for the speakers before me, because they gave different kind of approaches to the issue, to the topic. What I'm just going to express to you, it is a project Rosanna started our meeting today, WeGo, and I fully agree with her that WeGo is no more a project, it's really an initiative, because we have stepped in different levels. And I'm just going to give a few things we have been doing, and now we go to the second part of the project. And Eva, if we can go on the third slide, it will be great. Thank you very much. You'll see later who are the partners. I'm not going just to take more time about that. What we just do with this project, we have been putting the women survivors of intimate partners violence at the center and trying to help them find their way of economic empowerment. Because one of the biggest issues for them for staying at an abusive relationship is that they do not feel quite confident that they can manage themselves without the help and support of their partners. And the first part of the project, we worked with the women themselves just to make them be more stronger. And that second part, we decided that in order to help these women, we should work with the supportive environment. Meaning of anti-violence centers and all the different kind of private and public stakeholders. How we do that? We do that using 3 pillar strategies. We are just working capacity building on all those public and private stakeholders we have in the process. Next, what we done was just to help the anti-violence centers as the main supporters of these women to be strongly networking, trying to make a mapping what is the situation at the moment and how they can improve the networking with including and involving different kind of institutions, business, or local identities. And at last but not at least, awareness raising campaign just involving all these actors in one at the same time. Okay, developing networks. I have already said you that we used a different kind of activities on multidisciplinary effort, work on individual, regional, and social level, not just keeping on one at the same time. What kind of awareness activities? We just try to help survivors to access the opportunities of the labor market, involving and let's say attracting businesses. How we do that? In 3 main different ways. We are making raise awareness campaigns among employers, their staffs, and different kinds of level of experts and professionals. At the moment, we're just doing a series of trainings of companies of different capacity and different sectors, from medium-sized company to the big ones like Kaufland, like Raiffeisen Bank, and all different sectors and different specialities. At the end of my presentation, I will show you two instruments, two tools we give to the companies. And one of them is we invite them just to take part in a so-called WeGo labeling procedure. They can make their internal audit, just filling a questionnaire and then they can just compete with other companies and other institutions for being awarded with a label for a company being sensitive to the issue, company that has sustainable and corporate social policy towards women victim of intimate partner violence, not only as women are part members of their staff, but also women outside the company, which they can just involve and accept in their staff. One of the last things we do with the company is just help them to support women survivors in their job search, helping the process of skill assessment, career development plan, working together with anti-violence centers at two of the regions in Bulgaria. Okay, can we go please further? This is a good practice. I would ask Eva just to start this video and to see why it's important to do that.
Чух много обещания, че всичко ще се дни, че нещата ще бъдат наред. Наистина си мислих, че така ще стане. Имало е промяна, но е била временна.
След време, когато тя осъзна и взема правилното решение да продължи живота си сама с децата си и да бъде успешна в живота, защото ако тя се беше върнала, тя щеше да бъде в изходната позиция.
Харесва ми, аз съм свикнала там, работя отдавна. Харесва ми, работното ми време е много добро и заплащането също.
Ние имаме изключително добри взаимоотношения с работодатели, които са ни подавали ръка на жените в кризисния център.
В процеса на работа се запознахме с хората, които работят в центъра. В някакъв даден етап сме си говорили, че изпитвам затруднения от кандидатския персонал и разбира се, съм предлагали някакви опции за различни хора.
В момента е един добър пример за самотна майка, която си гледа децата. Не говорим за лукс, не говорим за екстри, но говорим за едно спокойствие, за един добър микроклимат в къщи, без насилие, без викове, без крясъци и отивайки децата на следващия ден на училище, те се чувстват спокойни.
Майките, които успят да си гледат децата, са достатъчно способни да си вършат достатъчно добре работата и дори да се наложи да отсъстват, пак ще работят повече от някой друг, който не е толкова съвестен.
В този даден момент имах нужда от такъв човек, второто, което тя може да се отзове доста бързо, без да чакам някакви толкова предизвестни. Разбира се, да й дам шанс, и човек тя се справи добре и нещата се получва доста бързо.
Аз преди това съм била с много ниска самооценка за себе си, въпреки че съм вършила всички тези неща.
Тя знае, че тези 10 лева, които ще си ги изкара там за определените часове, тези пари са нейни. Тя по този начин може да има малко по-висока самооценка.
Всеки, който мисли трезво и разумно, се дава сметка, че в даден един момент всеки от нас може да падне. Не прави по-некачествени хора, просто така се е случило в рамките на периоди.
Много сме добре, по-добре от преди.
Okay, yes, that is an example of real cases. This is a real survivor and a real employer that helps these women just to make more stronger and more stable. Tools we have prepared for the business. One of them is called the Untitled Chapter, signed by the management of a company that the company agrees to help our project and to give the opportunity for the staff to be trained in the issue of intimate partner violence and economic empowerment, and help the anti-violence centers with information about the possibility for such a women to start working at his stuff. And the last the last slide, if we can see it, it's that the label self-assessment questionnaire we suggest the companies to fill in if they decided to enter that we go to labeling procedure. We met a lot of companies and see that they like this and to make them to think on the issue, something that they have not paid much attention till now. Not only as a, let's say, problem of the society, but also a problem of their business, because they can just go deeper and identify people from their staff that can be survivors of intimate partner violence from one side, and from the other side, they accepted this kind of women as a potential employees, because these women can be a very loyal employee if they just met quite comfortable and loyal attitude from the employer. That is from my side a small example, working example what can be done for these ladies and how it's important to take real activities and to do real things. Thank you for your
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing with us your experience. I think it's a very good example on what we can do and what can be done. We arrived to the conclusion of this webinar. I think we, even though we were a little bit late, but we had a lot to discuss. So I'm very happy to see that all the participants stayed with us for the whole webinar. So now I would ask if it's possible to all the panelists to open the camera to just to see if there are some questions from the participants, and also if some of the panelists has other comments regarding also the other presentation of the other panelists.
There is actually a question, Dolinda.
Maybe you can help me.
It's a question for Fiori. Through your activities of women empowerment, did some women become self-entrepreneurs eventually, or did they become trainers for other young women? I don't know.
That's a very interesting question. So we're giving these opportunities to our women. So, for example, last year before COVID, they became trainers in upcycling workshops, and one has become a designer and has launched her own capsule collection. So there are opportunities, you know, once they are presented with opportunities based on the talents, they exploit them.
Thank you so much, Fiori. Yeah, we saw that opportunities come, and your work, it's essential to give them the right tools to follow their talent, as you were saying. So thank you so much to all. It was a pleasure to be with you. It was a pleasure to get the information and the experience that you share with me and with the participants. So I hope there will be the moments to meet you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.